Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and hanging out with me for a little bit. Always appreciate that. And guys, today we're going to be talking about some common bass fishing myths that I think a lot of people fall into. We're going to discuss them a little bit. I'm sort of going to tell you why they're myths, so we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, I just wanted to make you all aware of something going on with Tackle Warehouse. A lot of people know that they sell tackle and all the type of different fishing equipment out there, but they also sell trolling motors and electronics. So if you guys are looking to upgrade your electronics or your trolling motor, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description, and I'll link the electronics and the trolling motor if you guys are looking for some good bargains there. They got actually got some sales on electronics right now. So again, I'll put my link in the description. Much appreciated there. Okay guys, there's quite a few myths in bass fishing. There's lots and lots of myths out there. To some extent, some are more profound than others, but I just wrote down 5 of them real quick here that we're going to go over, and I'm going to talk about a little bit, sort of explain to you why they're myths and why you don't really need to pay much attention to them. Okay, the first one we got down is that the myth that bass bite because they're feeding and they're hungry. You hear a lot of people say that. It's like, oh, the bass just start biting today, or they must not be hungry, or they're not feeding, or that type of stuff. Guys, when you catch a bass, most of the time, the bass will bite your lure not out of hunger, it's out of other instincts that they have. In my opinion, I think that most bass feed at night. I think they're night feeders. And even in the cold weather, I think that most of them feed at night. And the ones that you catch during the daytime, I'm not saying they're not opportunistic and they won't feed when they get a chance, but more than not, when a bass bites your lure, it's out of curiosity or instinct or reaction or competition. Other factors determine that other than being hungry. And that's why it's really important to understand the mood and personality of a bass, because if you know that, you can use baits that that match the mood and the personality of the fish. Sometimes you want a fast bait that creates a reaction strike. Sometimes you want like an oddball looking bait that creates some type of a curiosity, like a big swim bait or glide bait. So for the most part, try to remember that bass are not biting because they're actually hungry out there. Okay, the next myth out there, guys, is that bass are turned off by cold fronts and that bass fishing gets tougher after cold fronts. That is also a myth. One of the things that you can tell by this, if you guys ever pay much attention to tournament results, especially over the past 10 or 15 years, if you correlate the weather patterns with the weights that are caught in a tournament, very seldom is there much difference between a prefrontal bite and a post-frontal bite. Now, there are extenuating circumstances. I mean, there are some really severe type frontal passages out there. Say, for example, if you've got, just a prefrontal, really warm day, and then you have some big Arctic massive front that rolls through and the temperature drops 40 degrees and the wind blows 30 miles an hour, it does have an impact on it, but it doesn't have the impact that you think it does in terms of turning the fish off. What happens when you think that bass are hard to catch after a cold front, it's usually because you're using the same technique that you caught them before the front. So what you have to do is you have to adjust your technique to catching bass after the front. Now, let me give you guys a prime example. Let's say that we're out, let's say you're fishing a grass bed in Florida, and you were catching them really good on some type of casting a wacky rig or a Senko, or maybe you were fishing a fluke real slow, something like that, where the fish came up on it, and you were catching fish, and then the front bite comes through there, and you can't catch a fish on a Senko, or you can't catch a fish on your fluke. They just don't want to bite it at all. All you have to do usually is change up your technique, because a lot of times they react better to moving lures after a front. So you could take like a lipless crankbait, like a rattle trap, and burn it over that grass bed to create a reaction strike after that front comes through, and you can continue catching the fish like that. So remember that a cold front will not turn fish off. It just requires you adjust your technique to match the mood and the personality of the fish a little bit. Okay, the third myth out there, and I hear this a lot out there, and it really sort of irritates me when I hear it, is that people say bass are dumb. And they say bass are little pea-brain creatures, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't, they're just ignorant, and they're just stupid, dumb animals in nature. Guys, that is the most disrespectful thing that you can see, that you could possibly say to bass, because we talked about this a little bit before. The Micropodus salmonoid lineage, which is the largemouth bass lineage, has been traced back to being on this planet for 3.5 million years. So they've been on the humans have only been on this planet for a little over a million years, or 1.5 million years, and bass have been here over twice as long as the human species has. So if you're a species on this planet and you've been able to adapt and survive and evolve over a course of 3 million years, you have some incredible intelligence. Now, the intelligence that is measured by a bass, you can't equate human intelligence to a bass's intelligence, because if you could actually have a conversation with a bass, they'd probably say those humans are the most ignorant animals on this planet. They pollute and destroy their own planet. They overpopulate their planet. They fight wars with each other. They're the most ignorant species on this planet. So don't ever say that bass are dumb, because they are extremely highly intelligent creatures within their own realm there. They're masters of adaptation and masters of their own evolutionary process. Super impressive species, in my opinion. Okay, number 4 myth got there, guys, is that color doesn't matter. Now, I hear this a lot in correlation with people saying bass are dumb. And every time I talk about colors, inevitably I'll get some guy that says, oh, studies, Randy, indicate that bass can only see red or green or black or white, or they can't see this or that or whatever. I'm calling BS on that, guys, because out of the 50 years more than I've been fishing out here, I can tell you that bass are extremely color sensitive. Regardless if you want to acknowledge it, or regardless if you want to throw up some type of study, that's BS, because color is super critical in maximizing how efficient or how good a bait is. I've seen it over and over again. And in my opinion out there, color it's a mystery, because you can have a sort of a baseline of how you think certain colors are good under certain situations. Like, most people know that like black and blue is good in dirty water, and watermelon or green pumpkin is good in cleaner water, and a translucent jerkbait is good in clear water, and a bright colored jerkbait is good in off-colored water. Those are basics out there. But I also have seen situations where that goes against everything. I've seen situations where you got baits that traditionally are dirty water baits that work in clear water, and I've seen situations where clear water baits work in dirty water. So a lot of it just depends on the mood and the personality, again, of the fish out there. And you don't really know how a bass sees a lure. People say that they know how a bass perceives the lure color. They don't know that. There's no possible way that you can tell if a bass can distinguish one color over another. But I do know for sure, and without a doubt, more than anything else in my fishing, is that color is very critical, and you always have to keep that in mind, and you always have to keep an open mind and keep experimenting with that. And finally, 5th myth on my list, guys, is that bass fishing is always better early in the morning. That's another myth, guys. You don't have to get out of bed at the crack of dawn to go bass fishing. You don't. Most of the best bass fishing that I have ever had in my life is in the middle of the day. In fact, probably if I look back at the course of my success in fishing over the decades I've been fishing, and I put a timestamp on where I've caught the most fish at, I bet early in the morning is the most least productive time for me to catch bass. They always bite better for me up around 11 o'clock, 2, 3, in the early afternoon, that type of deal, because bass, for a large degree, they're sight feeders, and they feed on vibration based upon water clarities. And I just think that when that sun gets up a little bit, they can see better. They're a little bit more aware of things. They position better. You can isolate them a little better. And with the exception of if there's like just a window of time during the year where the water temperature and the water clarity is just right, where, they do bite a little bit better early in the morning because of the conditions that I just talked about, there is a time and place for that. But overall, the whole thing about thinking you got to get out early because the fish bite early it's a big myth in fishing. So anyway, guys, that's just 5 that come off the top of my head there. One thing about bass fishing is, like, if you're one of those people that really want to try to control and try to understand bass movement behavior and try to have a black and white perspective on what bass do, you're going to be sadly disappointed, because Bass are unpredictable. They don't read books, they don't watch YouTube videos. They're mysterious, magical creatures, which is wonderful. That's the great thing about fishing, is we don't want to know everything. That's why I preach against live scope, because we don't want to know what's out there. And it's the same, we don't want to know everything a bass is thinking and everything that a bass reacts to. We need that mystery out there to keep it fun. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later, guys.